Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into my official college football week number 3 reaction, going through all the ranked games and giving my reaction, beginning with the Ohio State-Ohio game. The Buckeyes winning 37-9. Kind of an uneven performance. Ohio State settling for 3 field goals, including 2 field goals inside of the 10-yard line. Uncharacteristic. We'll see with the rush offense. Looks like Bo Jackson, possibly the young true freshman, will be their potentially new starting running back. He looks like their best running back by far. Ohio State did have a very good pass rush in this game. Ohio disappointing with Navarro, the dual threat QB, out for much of this game. I think Ohio potentially could win the MAC. We'll see. But Ohio State, for them, it's more so Texas. And we know that they got the huge, or at least the supposed huge week 1 win against Texas. But now it looks like Texas maybe not that good. So is that week 1 win devalued for Ohio State? They beat Grambling. They beat Ohio. Now they've got a bye week. Then they're at Washington. They're an interesting team. And it's going to be a big environment. So we'll see. But Ohio State, I mean, they won the national title last year. Yeah, they didn't cover this spread, but a lot of that came down to 3 field goals. They did have around 580 yards of offense. They outgained Ohio by like 400 yards. It was still a very dominant performance for the Buckeyes. You've got Penn State beating Villanova 52-6. Penn State, another slow start. This score was like 13-0 late in the second quarter. This is an FCS Villanova team. It is a good FCS team. But Penn State's just been kind of uneven this year. They did end up scoring over 50. Villanova had a crazy touchdown on the last second, or the last play of the game to cover. But Penn State gets a very easy win, and they've had a ridiculously easy non-conference schedule. They get a bye week, and then they've got the huge week 5 matchup. It's Oregon at Penn State. It is the NBC Saturday night game, the whiteout. And that's going to, at least early in the season, that is going to be the story for Penn State on how their season is going to go. They win that game. It's a huge win. Oregon is the number 1 team according to the analytics, ESPN, FPI. So we will see. But Penn State, they get a very easy win, and they start off 3-0, albeit very, very easy non-conference schedule. LSU beats Florida. You know, it really is a shame in this game when you look at, I believe it was late in the first quarter, DJ Lagway on a 3rd and long, coverage bust, 85-yard touchdown, called back, phantom holding. Yes, I did have Florida. I said plus the 7, plus the 8, whatever it was, but that was an insane penalty. That should not have been a penalty. It was a clear coverage bust by LSU. That would have been 7 points. It would have been 10-0 Florida in the first quarter. What are you going to do? LSU does still not, they still don't impress me. I don't think they have a particularly good offense. They got the win. It's the SEC. Florida's still a talented team, although now I think Florida is devalued significantly. They've got 2 losses. And by the way, that week 2 loss against South Florida looks really bad considering South Florida just got crushed by Miami, put into the context like that. So, listen, LSU, you'll take the 3-0 start, but I do think people anointed them too soon. I don't think their offense is that great. I don't think they have the skill position receivers that they've had in past great LSU teams. Yes, they've got a veteran QB. Also, the run game seems to be lacking a little bit. And Florida did outgain LSU by around 60 yards. It was DJ Lagway, the young quarterback, going on the road in a hostile environment, throwing 5 interceptions, and they still only lost by 10 points. But Florida at this point, they're devalued. Billy Napier, this is going to be it for him. Whatever the buyout is, they're going to pay it. 1-2 at this point with a very tough schedule with a young quarterback who throws 5 interceptions in a game that your defense played well and it was semi-winnable, albeit they did get screwed on the phantom holding call, and this game would have been a lot closer. But either way, LSU gets the victory there. You've got Oregon beating Northwestern, so Oregon coming in at number 4 in the country going into this game. They are still the number 1 team according to ESPN FPI. And this was a game they were up 34-0. Northwestern scored 2 late touchdowns. Solid win. Dante Moore didn't look the best. Doesn't surprise me. It's a Big Ten game where Oregon is traveling far and there's very little crowd atmosphere. It was played at the practice facility to where there's only like 20,000 fans. It's not even a real stadium when you look at it on Big Noon. So right off of Lake Michigan, Oregon handles their business. What were they, like 27-point favorites? They only won by 20, but some of that is because Northwestern scored a very late touchdown. So solid win for Oregon, and they've got the huge game against Penn State coming up in 2 weeks on the road. And they should be underdogs in that game, but probably only by a few points. Next, you've got Miami beating South Florida 49-12. I think Vegas might have gotten bankrupt in this game. Myself and pretty much every prediction that I saw had Miami easily covering, and they easily covered. They were around 16, 17-point favorites. This is an emotional situation for South Florida, coming off the crazy road win against Florida in a game where they didn't necessarily play that great themselves. Now they're at Miami. It's another in-state matchup. Carson Beck looked good. Miami right now, people are arguing, are they the number one team in the country? Will South Florida stay ranked? Miami also beat Notre Dame, but now Notre Dame might be devalued a little bit. I'll talk about them in a second because Notre Dame's 0-2, but Miami did have that big week one win against Notre Dame. I think Miami should be possibly top 3 team at this point. They do look very good. You've got to award them for quality wins. And South Florida, whatever you want to say about them, they did beat Florida, although now you can say Florida's 1-2, so how big of a win was that? But still, you give Miami credit. It's a blowout victory, a game that had a weather delay. There are so many weather delays now in college football. I think they changed the rules on how close in the vicinity lightning must be. And now it's like within like 50 miles, if there's lightning, they delay every game. That's why there's all these delays. I mean, what about the Purdue USC game delayed for 3.5 hours? There's so many delays now in college football. This game was delayed, and you know what? It does hurt the home team in terms of the atmosphere. The crowd gets taken out of it if there's a delay. And so it's interesting to see, and it's going to go away by like October because the weather's going to change. It's going to become too cold, but it's just crazy how many delays we're getting nowadays. You've got Georgia beating Tennessee. This was a huge game. And what a victory for Georgia. I mean, say what you want. Their week 2 performance against Austin Peay, they struggled significantly. Gunnar Stockton on the road, down 38-30 late in this game. They come back, and you can call it a choke by Tennessee. They were set up. It seemed like they were playing timid on that last drive. You want to get as close as you want to score a touchdown, honestly, if you're Tennessee. These college kickers cannot be trusted. If you play timid, you play for a 43-yard field goal, it's going to come back to bite you more than likely. The kid shanks it, doesn't even come close. Tennessee was in position to potentially win this game. I did predict this game to be a 3-point victory for Georgia. Not bragging about it, but let's be honest. Georgia ends up winning by 3, 44-41. And Georgia, I mean, see, this is for the SEC. This is great for the SEC. It's a 6v15, and it's a 3-point game, and it's competitive. Are they really going to drop Tennessee that far at all? Probably not. So, Georgia gets the win. How far will Georgia move up? I don't know. We'll have to see. But it is a solid win after a very poor performance against an FCS school. It just shows you, facing an FCS school, teams, they're lackadaisical. There's no energy. It doesn't really matter. And then they come out on the road against Tennessee and they show crazy fight after falling behind 21-7, where Joey Aguilar was he 14-14 to start the game? That's an impressive victory by Georgia. Say what you want about the defense. Some games are like this. Georgia still has a very talented defense, but some games are like this where you got to win a shootout, and Georgia was able to win it. Next, you've got Texas beating UTEP. This is a huge concern for Texas. At this point, I'm not going to say in terms of their game against Oklahoma should be favorites, but it's getting very, very close. Arch Manning at one point was 8 of 22 against UTEP. They were 41-point favorites coming into this game. UTEP is a terrible FBS team. I don't know if Arch Manning is injured. How is it possible you're 8 of 22 against UTEP at home? There is something wrong. I don't know. They need to move down. They did not look good last week against San Jose State. You could say week 1 against Ohio State. They only lost by 7 on the road against the number 1 team or the number 3 team at the time. There's a problem here with Texas. And look, maybe it's lackadaisical. It's facing a bad team. They're going to start facing, they've got a gauntlet coming up for the next 3 or 4 games. So I don't know what to say about Texas. I think they should move down. I mean, they're 2-1. They already have a loss. Yes, it's to the number 1 team on the road, but a performance like this against UTEP, you have to just call it like you see it. I mean, that's anemic. You're 40-point favorites. You win by 17. Your quarterback at one point is completing like 42% of his passes. They could not, I mean, look at their run-pass ratio. I don't know if Arch Manning has a shoulder injury or what, but it was like 40-20 at one point. All they did was run the ball. I don't know what's going on with Texas. You could say, well, they don't want to show anything for their future, but it's like Arch Manning needs these reps. He needs to get confidence after that week 1 game. You've got Texas A&M beating Notre Dame by 1 point. Yeah, this shocked me, honestly. It really did. Kind of a weird game for Marcel Reed. He completed less than 50% of his passes, but like over 400 passing yards. They had a ton of yards in the first half, Texas A&M. And this is one of those, it's unfortunate because this is gonna really strengthen the SEC. Because imagine if Texas A&M loses this game, they go to 2-1, they drop outside of the top 20. Now they're probably going to be inside the top 12. I mean, what happens to Notre Dame? What happens to Notre Dame, the number 8 team in the country? You could say there was a hold that A&M got away with, and Notre Dame, they led this game 40-34. They go for 2 to try and make it 42-34. They don't get it. A&M comes down, scores a touchdown. They kick an extra point. They end up winning. It's unfortunate. Notre Dame very easily could have covered that 6.5, and I thought they were going to. Imagine they get that 2-point conversion. They're up 42-34. They hold on. That's an 8-point win. Notre Dame is still a very good team. They are. People are not going to like it. They're going to say, oh, how dare you? They're 0-2. I think Notre Dame they should still be ranked inside of the top 15, maybe the top 10, because they're a great football team. Now, they've had some tough losses, but it's all right. They're still a great team. Texas A&M, yeah, they outgained Notre Dame. I'll give them that. But listen, I'm surprised Notre Dame's defense was that. Really, if you're going to tell me that Marcel Reed is going to throw for like 400 yards against Notre Dame on the road, I mean, that's crazy to me. And there's some problems with the Marcus Freeman in the defense, the situation there. There's some serious issues. Illinois beat Western Michigan 38-0. Illinois covers that spread at 27.5. Illinois at Indiana next week. I think they're probably going to lose. They're going to be underdogs, Illinois, on the road at Indiana by a lot. Because Indiana, believe it or not, in terms of the FPI, is like a top 11 team now. Illinois is like outside the top 20. But Illinois gets an easy win. They cover the spread. Good for them. Vanderbilt crushes South Carolina. Lenoris Sellers injury dooms the Gamecocks. And South Carolina, they've started the year really uneven. They had the week 1 bad offensive performance against Virginia Tech. The week 2 game against South Carolina State was not good. And now Vanderbilt's going to be a top 20 team. And so for the SEC, they lose South Carolina, but now they gain Vanderbilt. So, doesn't really surprise me, but Vanderbilt now 3-0. They had a very impressive week 2 win, a non-conference game on the road at Virginia Tech. Even though Virginia Tech's obviously not very good, it was still a good win in terms of the yardage difference. And they crushed South Carolina. And this was one of those games to where a lot of people thought it was going to be an upset. The line opened South Carolina -5.5. It got bet down to 2.5. And then Vandy easily wins it. And Lenoris Sellers, who I certainly have some serious questions about his throwing ability, him getting injured certainly affected this game. I don't know if South Carolina I don't think they would have won it anyways, just because, 31-7, but it definitely changed the complexion of the game. Georgia Tech beat Clemson. Clemson's going to be unranked. Clemson has had a very bad 3 weeks. They lose to LSU. Their offense looks anemic. They look terrible against Troy. They were losing that game 16-3. And then they lose to Georgia Tech. Haynes King, he's a gamer. He really is. Georgia Tech using the QB run. Very important that he was back for this game, healthy enough to play, even though you could tell that he was injured throughout. He looked banged up. He gutted it out. Georgia Tech is going to be ranked after this win for sure. And an easy, what were they? Georgia Tech was like +3.5 in this game at home. Noon start time. They were up 13-0. Clemson comes back. They get a long touchdown to go up 14-13, but it never felt like Clemson was in control of this game ever. And Tech ends up winning 24-21. And I don't know what you say about Clemson and Dabo Swinney at this point. This was the year for Clemson to announce themselves as potentially having another season like they had in 2016, 2017. It's just not happening. They've got the veteran quarterback. They've got 3 potential defensive first-round picks, 2 on the D-line alone. They're 1-2 now. They're 0-1 in the ACC. This is a big problem for Clemson. They have to somehow run the table in the ACC, make the ACC championship, and win the ACC now to get in the playoff. Oklahoma crushes Temple in kind of a nothing game, 42-3. John Mateer, people talking about him for the Heisman. I don't think Mateer is going to win the Heisman. He doesn't have enough weapons to put up the stats, and I think Oklahoma's probably going to go 9-3. But Oklahoma's got to be looking at Texas and licking their lips. Oklahoma can very, very easily beat Texas, the way Texas currently is playing. And they go on the road at a bad Temple team. They take care of business. They cover that spread. Iowa State beats Arkansas State. Weird game. They go on the road. They only win that game by 8 points. Not high on Iowa State. Not high on the Cyclones at all. But it's kind of one of those weird games where you're going on the road against a group of 5. It's strange. They get the win. But I'm not high. I'm just not high on the Big 12 in general, outside of maybe one team. Ole Miss ends up beating Arkansas. Disappointing they didn't cover in this game. They only scored 3 points in the fourth quarter. You had Simmons with the injury. The backup looked really good. I'm not surprised this was a close game, and I did think Ole Miss would cover. I had them winning 47-34, and it was pretty close to that, but they only scored 3 points in the fourth quarter. It kind of screwed me. Bama easily beats Wisconsin. Honestly, this score was closer than the game. The game was a complete blowout. Wisconsin got like a kickoff return for a touchdown in the third quarter. They could not move the ball at all. Otherwise, they got one garbage time touchdown in the fourth. Bama looks really good. And I'll tell you what, Bama, they can't run the ball, but Ty Simpson, 400 passing yards. Ryan Williams comes alive. Bama's one of the most talented rosters in college football. There's no doubt about it. Bama covers that 20.5 point spread. And again, this could have been like 45-7. This was really not a competitive football game. Utah beats Wyoming 31-6 in kind of a nothing game. The under easily hits. It was 3-0 at halftime, so that's not a great sign for Utah, but it's another one of those games. You're going on the road at Wyoming. It's going to be a little strange. It's a night game. I can kind of understand it, maybe. But I think Utah, to me, this is the team right now in the Big 12. And you don't want to overhype them, but Texas Tech, they had the weather delay in this game. This was their big non-conference game. Oregon State is terrible. I mean, it's a very bad non-conference schedule for Texas Tech in what they've had. But they are 3-0. They're 3-0 against the spread. Their offense looks really good. Their defense looks good against bad teams, against very, very bad teams. You had an FCS team. You had Penn State, which is worse than you had an FCS team. Then you had Penn State, who's worse than many FCS teams. And then you had Oregon State, who's now 0-3. But still, they're looking good. We'll see with Texas Tech in conference. But right now, you could say, in terms of the Big 12, they're probably the favorites to win the Big 12. It doesn't mean a ton because of the teams that they've played, but they do look the best, again, against really bad competition. Oregon State scored 2 extremely garbage time touchdowns. Next, you've got Michigan destroying Central Michigan 63-3, a total annihilation. By the way, Michigan, in terms of the FPI, and I know people don't care about that, but they moved up like 19 spots with this destruction of Central Michigan. Michigan does have a much improved offense, even with the true freshman. Bryce Underwood looks phenomenal. The running back Haynes looks good. I think everyone is concerned about Michigan's pass catchers or lack thereof. They've got an interesting test coming up at Nebraska. It'll be a fun game. Michigan is the more talented team than Nebraska, but Nebraska's at home and they've got a more seasoned QB. So it'll be interesting, but that is a notable performance. People say, well, it's Central Michigan, but to win a game like that 63-3, it does show such a significant gap. Like, look at what Illinois did against, Western Michigan? They won 37-0. See, there's a huge difference between an offense scoring 63 points and 37 points against a MAC team. There's an explosive factor that Michigan does have with Underwood now. There is. And again, I'm not saying, oh, they beat Central Michigan by this, but I'm saying you can diagnose based on the score and based on just the total domination in terms of yardage. Michigan is always going to have a good defense. And the offense is coming along. So Michigan, you'll say it's against Central Michigan, and they look bad against last week against Oklahoma. But still, winning by 60 against a MAC team it's a very impressive win. You've got Auburn beating South Alabama by 16. I don't think Auburn should be ranked. Auburn was 25-point favorites. Nobody thought they were going to cover. They don't come close to covering. I'm not a big believer in Jackson Arnold. This is an SEC team. The reason they're ranked is because they beat Baylor. And Baylor, they had 400 yards of passing in that for week 1 game. But I understand. It's just, it is what it is with Auburn. I'm not impressed with them. You have Missouri beating Louisiana 52-10. Missouri easily covers that spread, by the way, 27-point spread. So they handle their business. I give Missouri credit for that. But in terms of this, I would say Michigan certainly trending up. I'd say Texas Tech is trending up. I'd say Alabama is trending up. They're starting to get it together. You could say it's against bad competition. We know the next game, Georgia. It's going to be very hard for Bama. It's going to be a completely different test. But still, that's a solid win. Ole Miss to me is kind of... I don't think they're a top 15 team at this point. Not with the quarterback situation, not with the defense, with Lane Kiffin, the problems there. I think Iowa State is trending down. I think Oklahoma is trending up. Clemson obviously is going to be unranked. Georgia Tech is going to be ranked. South Carolina is going to be unranked. Vanderbilt is going to be ranked. Illinois, I think, is going to lose next week against Indiana because they're on the road. And Indiana's going to be like 7-point favorites in that game, if people don't know. A&M, I mean, is it crazy to say that I'd still have Notre Dame above A&M? I don't think that's crazy. I think Notre Dame is a really good team, and A&M, it's just like a fluky game from what I saw, and a lot of experts were saying it's just fluky, and it just, it's sometimes it happens in college football. Texas is trending way down. You're gonna have to bump Texas down. You can't have a performance like that against UTEP. Georgia, they gotta be. You gotta say probably top five. I mean, but who? You're not gonna move Miami out. If anything, Miami goes up, Georgia goes up. But do you knock Oregon down? I mean, Oregon's the number one team analytically. I think LSU's got to come down. I mean, they got a phantom holding call. Without that, Penn State. You could argue Penn State should come down because they've faced no one. It's a terrible non-conference. They haven't looked that impressive. Yeah, they won 52-6. They scored a bunch of fourth quarter points. This was another game where they were struggling. And then Ohio State, kind of a weird game. They do have the win against Texas, but is that really a huge win now? So because people are saying Miami should be number one, Georgia should be number two, Ohio State should be number three, LSU should be number four, Penn State should be number five, Oregon should be number six, Notre Dame should be number seven at 0-2. Yeah, that seems pretty realistic. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you like the video down below. Thank you for watching.